Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam, and you are here to for another Criterion Roundtable with my good friends Elliot, Coen, Chris Mohan, and Nathan Jones. As I said, this is the 4th edition or episode of this videocast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, where I get a few of my favorite friends and blue tubers in the community to talk about the Criterion Collection. And the format of the show is to champion a single film that's in the collection that we want to promote or recommend to any viewers or listeners out there, and then also suggest a film that isn't in the collection that we want to bring to the collection because we feel like it deserves the treatment that the Criterion is known for bringing to films. And so I'll start off proceedings by making a recommendation of a film from the collection. It's a fairly recent addition to the collection, came out last year, and I'm talking about The Girl Can't Help It by Frank Tashlin. Who's seen this film? I should start off with.
I have.
I have it on my shelf.
Sam, you have to sing the song when you introduce the film.
The girl can't help it. The girl can't help it. Is that good enough?
Yeah, that was good enough.
Oh, thank you.
Bravo.
I got Elliot Coen's approval on that one. I'll take that. So this is a zany musical comedy about a mobster called Fats Murdoch, who basically wants his girlfriend, who's played by Jane Mansfield, to become like the next singing sensation. And Fats, the mobster, he hires a talent agent played by Tom Ewell to basically promote her and like get a lot of buzz around her and just make her the next big star in the scene. But the catch is that James Mansfield character hasn't got a lick of talent. So it's about him trying to promote her as this, wonderful thing that she isn't. And as the story progresses, the two characters, James Mansfield character and Tom Ewell's character, they start to fall for each other, and how they sort of like arouse the suspicions of the mobster, and it allows for some quite comedic elements. It's quite a funny film, and it's very much a spoof of like the music industry in the 50s and the entertainment industry, and obviously it was like the birth of television being like really popular and things like that, and there's like indirect references to like Elvis in it and things like that. And it's gorgeously shot by Leon Shamroy, who, if you don't know, he won the Oscar for cinematography for Cleopatra, and what else did he win it for?
He also did Leave Her to Heaven.
Leave Her to Heaven, which he won the Oscar for, and I think he's the most nominated cinematographer in Oscar history. He had 18 nominations, so he's a very celebrated DOP, and it looks fantastic in the deluxe color. So it's called deluxe color, and it does look fantastic. Very vibrant, very 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 playful. Without spoiling anything, the film begins in black and white and in like a 4:3 aspect ratio, and then it sort of grows to like, I can't remember exactly what the aspect ratio is here. It'll probably say on the back, 2:35, and in color. And it's a very playful transition to sort of bring it into modern times for like the deluxe color and everything like that. And yeah, I absolutely love it. What are your thoughts on it, Elliot, as you're the only person to have seen it?
Yeah, I basically echo everything you just said. I thought it was just such a fun film, very, very colorful. Loved all the music. That main song I just had stuck in my head for about a month after I first saw it.
Are you going to do a version? No,
we can do a duet.
We'll save that for another time.
I mean, if you're I knew the song before I actually saw this film because it is used in another famous film that's in the Criterion Collection, which is John Waters' Pink Flamingos. So there's a scene where Divine is walking through the streets and stuff, and The Girl Can't Help It is playing, and it's the same song. And John Waters is very much influenced by this film, where he found it like he loved it when he first watched it, and Divine took a lot of inspiration from Jane Mansfield for his drag creation. And it's really funny on these special features. There's an interview. It's an archival one. It's not a new one of John Watts talking about The Girl Can't Help It on it, and his like how much he loved it and its influences on him, and how he compared Divine's creation to Jane Mansfield meets Godzilla. So, and that pretty much sums up Divine, to be honest. So I had such a blast with it. The music is fantastic. I mean, it's not the typical sort of music I would listen to outside of enjoying this film per se. There's a lot of like contemporary rock and roll artists like Little Richard and Eddie Cochran and things like that, and they just fit the tone of the film wonderfully, and I really enjoyed the musical numbers. When I say musical, it's like not a musical where the characters just start breaking out into song, like maybe Singing in the Rain or anything like that. It's all like stage based performances, like they're all in a club or something like that. So for people who are sometimes put off by like musicals, because not everyone likes traditional musical type films, this is more like performance based bands in clubs and on stage and things like that. So it fits that sort of mold of musical. And yeah, I loved it. I want more people to check this out, especially if you're a John Waters fan and you want to see where some of his like camp influences, because this film is very camp. Obviously Jane Mansfield gets compared to Marilyn Monroe. She was basically classed as like the knockoff version of Marilyn Monroe. I can see why people think that. I think she's very charming in here, but she's very one note, but the character is sort of meant to be that, if that's what, it's not like she's been written more complex and she's not doing very well with her range. It's just the note of the character. So she does really well here, and she has some very charming moments in it. And yeah, it's very funny, almost like screwball-y in places, not quite that, but it's got that sort of element to it. And yeah, the cinematography is gorgeous, and yeah, on this particular disc, loads of great special features, and yeah, highly recommend it for all those viewers and listeners out there.
It reminds me quite a lot of, you brought up Singing in the Rain, that kind of story of like how in Singing in the Rain the female actor has that terrible voice, when it transitions to sound, and it's like trying to make something greater out of someone than they actually are.
For sure.
Or like that film Born Yesterday. Has anyone seen that one?
I haven't seen that.
It's from the 50s, and it's about this businessman's wife, and she's made out to be like a bit of an idiot, uncultured, stuff like that. And he tasks this guy with like basically training her up, giving her like etiquette lessons and stuff. It's a bit like that in a way.
Yeah. Okay. It was making me think of Facing the Crowd when you were talking about that as well. Another one, kind of like the stardom and celebrity as well. Yeah.
That's a good comparison. There's also anybody who's like into the Beatles or doesn't know a load of Beatles history, like John Lennon was hugely influenced by this film. He was hugely into like the rock and roll artists that were in the film, like Little Richard and things like that. And he watched it when he was a kid, like 15 or 16 years old. And he basically was like into music already, but it's one of the films that he said really cemented his passion to want to pursue music. So there's that, little tidbit of trivia for anyone who likes the Beatles, or just music history combined with film history and stuff. So yeah, so The Girl Can't Help It. Elliot, do you want to make your Criterion? Oh, did you want to have something to say, Nathan?
Oh, I just wanted to say, like, I really like the name Fats. I think that's a fantastic villain name, and yeah, that's pretty much all I had. But also, like, you just talking about John Waters made me think of things like this. I'm like,
oh yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is very different, I'm sure, than this. I'm sure this is a lot more playful, a lot more has a little bit more class. But anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Beyond the Valley of Dolls is one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, that's a very biting, satirical. I don't even know how to describe that film. It's every genre you can possibly think of. Yeah, The Girl Can't Help It is very played, even though it's farcical in places, it's played very straight. Right. It's not like Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, but
right. Did it come out in the 60s, right?
No, this is 1956.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's like right in the the middle of like the rock and roll boom, and stuff like that.
Makes sense with all the acts that you mentioned, who are there. So, in the music.
For sure. Elliot, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I've chosen one that I watched just the other evening, and it's Buck and the Preacher.
Okay.
Is anyone familiar? Oh, Chris has got it. Chris
that was my backup.
Well, it's good to know we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know much about this at all before I watched it. It's a Western, but it's one of those that's sort of, what do you call it? Like a revisionist Western in a way. Although actually what's depicted in this film is perhaps more true to life than is what is depicted in most Westerns. Because it stars Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, directed by Sidney Poitier. And it's different because it's got these two black actors in leading roles, and it deals with a lot of the issues that arose at the end of the American Civil War, when slavery had been abolished, but in many places in America it was still sort of in place. People still weren't treated fairly, so a lot of black people would move to other areas, and then when they get to those areas they'd meet a lot of resistance from the locals. So that's kind of what this is dealing with. And these bounty hunters would get sent out to kind of purge these people, because people just didn't want them there out of their own ignorance. So that's what the film's dealing with, but it's also very entertaining, great performances from these two guys. And it's also looking at the kind of the issues that the black people were facing, but also the Native Americans at the time, and how they almost team up to fight against these white bounty hunters. So yeah.
What year is this from?
This is from 1972.
Oh, okay, so, cool.
And there's some great special features on here because it talks about how this didn't really see the success it could have done, because this was around the time when blaxploitation films were coming up, and most audiences just wanted to watch the likes of Shaft instead of something like this. So it's only now that this film is kind of getting a bit more attention, which is good.
Criterion doing its job.
Because it's a perfect Criterion release in that aspect, and that it is a film for entertainment, but it also is like loads of context, which kind of make it even more important. And if I'm remembering it right, because it is a while since I've seen it, like Belafonte and Poitier didn't get on. There was a lot of like jealousy between the two of them, I think, because Belafonte thought that Poitier had kind of broken the mold of like black, being taken seriously as an actor, and he thought he was that good, but could never really break through, etc.
Yeah, well, Belafonte was very close with Martin Luther King Jr., and then I think him and Poitier kind of fell out around that time, and up until making this film, they weren't talking. But then one of them reached out to the other, and they decided to put their differences aside and actually make this film.
I was going to say, how's the relationship between the two in the movie? Like, does it come across as pretty like a companionship? I guess.
What's interesting is the characters start out disliking each other a lot at the start, and then they grow to appreciate one another. So perhaps that is mirroring what the actors were experiencing during making the film.
Is this got a UK release?
Yeah, this is the UK disc, as seen
Awesome.
by the ugly triangle.
Yeah. We were speaking in our group chat and saying that for me, I'm one of the few people. Well, I'm the only person in this group that doesn't really like westerns very much, apart from Italian westerns and neo westerns, like modern westerns, sort of like retracing the steps of like classic ones. But this is the sort of thing that takes a new spin, or at least even with the context of it, is something I know I would probably enjoy a lot more than the classic ones. So another one to add to the list. Cheers, Elliot. That's great.
And again, in the special features, One of them is looking at the history of American Westerns and how a lot of important figures in real American history who were Black were kind of erased from these Western films. So like even the Searchers with John Wayne, the character that he is playing is based on a real life person who was African American. So there's a whole load of stories in the kind of Western canon that should have had a lot more Black characters, but they just didn't because of, you know, the Hollywood system at the time.
Sure.
The whitewashing
Interesting.
of that whole 20 years worth of like a very, very popular genre film. It's almost all predominantly white. And, you know, the realistic part of it is that there was very much mixed race and mixed culture there. And as Elliot said, you know, the idea that slavery was over, but that didn't mean that these people had a home. You know, they had nowhere to go to, and nobody really wanted to give them anything, so they had to go and kind of do it themselves.
And I believe that a large amount of, you know, the cowboys of the period were African Americans. You know, but that's something that you wouldn't gather from watching, you know, classic Hollywood movies.
It's ironic that this morning I don't know what cut my curiosity of this, but I was looking into my hometown, Springfield, Missouri, which is where I live, and reading about like Wild Bill Hickok's had like a shootout here, and thinking about, you know, there's a lot of that diasporic communities that we actually drove out a lot of the Black and African American population here. Unfortunately, in the early 1900s, which is not that long ago, which is just wild to me to think about. Just like, I mean, like obviously something like this where, you know, we're looking at something that isn't really shine a light on, that is more reality than it is the fiction. So, yeah.
Sure.
Nice. Great pick. Yeah, great pick.
Thanks.
Chris?
Me? Right. The other one that I had, which is the original pick again, is the one I watched most recently, is Miracle in Milan. I thought this is a nice one because this is an inexpensive, there's a UK edition from Arrow Academy that's been up for a long while. And it is a lot of us have seen like those neorealism Italian films, you know, that were basically penned by the guy that did this, Sabatini, that did this. And I went into this thinking this is another one of those. So this is going to be like the Rossellini films. This is going to be like Bicycle Thieves, which he also wrote. But this isn't. This is like a surrealist kind of satire, like almost like a fantasy film. Anybody seen it?
Yeah,
no, but it's been on my list for a while.
Yeah.
I think I've seen people describe it as like a magical realism. You know,
magical realism. Yeah,
sort of a bit like what Fellini was doing. And I remember when I watched that years ago on the Arrow disc, a lot of it reminded me of Chaplin, like Charlie Chaplin, in kind of like the comedy of it. And yeah. Well,
it's very much based around this young boy who's found in I think it's cabbages or something. He's found by this woman and brought up, and then she dies when he's still a young man. And there's this great scene of actually him being the only person walking behind her funeral cart through the cities of Milan, and kind of, you know, it's a really humbling scene. But then he gets taken into an orphanage, leaves the orphanage, and basically sets up like a small commune of people that are just very, very poor within Italian society. You know, the bit of wasteland, they build their own community, and he's just a source of like organization and hope and all of those things. He never gets down about things. He's organizing people, keeping them going, and then they find oil essentially in the place that they're at, and people obviously want the land that they're at, and it plays an awful lot with the themes of neorealism, but kind of this total outlier and not as, you know, depressing as a lot of those films are. As much as I love Bicycle Thieves, it's heavy sometimes. You know, it's a real gut punch. And this one kind of throws all of that out. And I think this film, I believe at the time, upset a lot of people because a lot of people wanted more of we need to tell people how absolutely terrible post-war Italy is. And it's almost like a dystopian, like sci-fi film in some ways, you know, post-war Italy. It's kind of like, let's start again. Like there's nothing left here. Milan itself was very heavily bombed, and so a lot of it was leveled. And this was a lot of fun. Plus, the disc has like a breakdown of its context, where it sits within neorealism, and then a 50-minute documentary on Sabatini, who was a screenwriter for
Nice.
all this as well. So it's a really great disc as well.
Awesome. I love that, putting it into context stuff. I love I said in a recent video I did, like, I love almost as much as I love watching film, I love learning about film history and the social context and political context that films are made in and stuff. So having that those sorts of extras from the Criterion, it's just education, and it's wonderful to have that sort of thing.
It also gives you the other important films from around that, some of them that are famous and some of them that haven't been released, recent parts, so you can kind of look out for them and say, right, I like that film, if I want to read more about it, see more about it, these are the other ones I should be looking for.
Nice.
That was good for a film fan.
Cool. Nathan?
Well, it's ironic that we just talked about a socio-political film, because the next film I have is a pretty recent release also from Criterion, spy number 1156, 1156, and that's La Llorona, by Jairo Bustamante. And actually, this is a Shudder film. So anyone who is in, I don't know, do you have Shudder, by the way?
We do.
Yeah, you can get it. You get it on Amazon.
Yeah, so if anyone has Shudder, you can watch that there if you want to see this film before you buy it. But it's a film from 2019, like I said, by Jairo Bustamante. I hope I said his name correctly. But it's a Guatemalan film about a real life event that actually occurred in Guatemala, of genocide, and the very recent event that happened, unfortunately. But it's mixing the La Llorona folk horror tale that has perpetually been kind of in Central and South America and several cultures, but they all differ a little bit. Anyway, but yeah, this is set around the trial of this fictitious general, but it's not really fictitious. It's Rios Montt, I think is his name, Efrain Rios Montt, who committed these crimes. But anyway, the film centers around his family and their manor, and all of them that are dealing with the press and the political violence outside. But obviously it's well deserved for what happened. But anyway, along comes a new housemaid who is played by Maria Mercedes Coroy, who doesn't really have a name, but she has a very particular presence. And you can tell that there's something going on with the La Llorona folktale, and that's kind of what it covers in. And I love the blend of the nonfiction, which, like I said, it is almost like a nonfiction story with that supernatural folk horror. And I know all of you know I love folk horror, and I think that's something why I picked this film itself, because it's interesting because they take the story of La Llorona and they make it into like a folk hero in this particular tale, which I think is really interesting, because a lot of the times we've seen like the more recent La Llorona tales where they're kind of from the Insidious and Conjuring universe and things along those lines, and they're not that great. But anyway, I just really like the mix between this, and there's actually some really great special features on here. There's a documentary on the making of this film, which is about 45 minutes or so, which is a great one. And there's also an interview with Bustamante talking about the film and all the themes that it entails and the filming of it. So it's a really great release. I remember when this was announced, I had literally just watched it on Shudder and I was like, wow, this is coming out really fast. And so I picked it up on the disc and I watched it again. And it blows my mind how I didn't talk about how beautiful this film is. Like the shots and the cinematography in this, it's a film that will stick with you. And there's also a really great song at the very end, a retelling of I just go listen to it if you can. I don't have the person's name in front of me, but it's stuck with me. I didn't want to turn off the credits like I do sometimes. So but La Llorona. Has anyone seen this film?
No, but I'm glad that someone's maybe subverted the La Llorona story, because it's been told so many times, like in various iterations, as you said. Like I recently watched the Powerhouse Indicator one from like the Mexican one from the 30s.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just nice to have it subverted, because I know it's been told many times through the different cultures and stuff have revisited it and it's been remade and stuff. So to have something like that where it's like reinterpreted and repurposed in that context sounds really interesting. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, go check it out.
Cool. Do you want to go again, Nathan, for your selection for what you want to come to the Criterion?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking about another film that wasn't that long ago, and this is the second film from this director. She's gotten quite big since this film, but I'm talking about Chloe Zhao, and I'm talking about The Writer from 2017. This is her second film, like I said. It's about a guy named Brady Gendarou, I think is how you say his name. He's in South Dakota, and he is a rider, like a bull, like he rides horses and like competes. And there was an actual accident that happened to this character because it's played by the same character. He's Brady in the film. He's Brady in real life. This actually happened to him. In fact, the very beginning of the film shows the accident, and it actually is actual footage of the accident. So it blends that, that fiction and nonfiction. Once again, I guess that's the theme of my choices today. But anyway, so it follows him, and this is one of the most masculine. It's the middle of America. What it means to be a guy in America, in the West, and also I know Elliot was talking about Westerns in general, but like there's a lot of hypermasculinity and things like this, but he was trying to find his own identity through it. There's also his sister Lily, who is actually his sister, who plays in the film, and then his father Tim, who is also in it. These are all non-actors. And so Chloe Zhao actually was in the area because she I guess lived around South Dakota for a while, and she was in the area trying to scout for a film where she was wanting to talk more about the Native American experience. And she actually met this family a year prior to making the film, and had known Brady. And actually the accident happened right after they had met. And so she kind of pivoted her direction and wanted to make a film like this. And so it really, takes the film's themes are like, identity through, what we pour ourselves into, things like what we're doing right now. Like we pour our identities into these, physical media and like the films that we like to watch. And so it's really fascinating to kind of see a character, go through, something that like pretty much took him away from it. And his love. And this speaks to me really highly because my father, he used to be almost like a minor league baseball player. He played baseball like his entire life, and then he actually broke his leg in his late 20s, and it pretty much stopped his love of playing the game. And so in turn, he became a hoarder and a collector, and you can see that I've taken on a very similar theme in my life. But it's really personal for me too, to see somebody go through something that they love so much and it's gotten taken away from them, and trying to figure out how do you cope with that. So this is an amazing film. More people need to talk about it. I think this is a Sony Pictures classic, which is I love that line. But there's only really a Q&A here, and that's it on the special features. So, and has anyone seen this film?
No, I've never even heard of it.
No,
so you brought that to my attention. It sounds really interesting. I've said this before, I think even on this Criterion Roundtable in a previous episode, I love the blending of fiction and reality, like documentary sort of meeting fiction. I just absolutely adore that. Like anything meta, anything that sort of does all that stuff. And this sounds right up my street. So I'm definitely going to have to source this one out. So
it's a Western you're going to have to add to your list.
Yeah.
for a man that doesn't really like Westerns, which is good.
Yeah, it's good.
Did it
Expanding
make you want
my
to
horizons.
get a cowboy hat, Nathan? Was it one of those things while you were credits rolled and you were on eBay going, I wonder, can I get one just like that?
Yeah, I think about it daily. How many American things I can add to my aesthetic.
Do you not think you're representing your country enough?
I spent the 4th of July with you blokes, so
Yeah.
that might be a telling thing. So I don't know.
Classic.
Amazing.
Awesome. Chris?
Me, okay. So two choices. I'm going to go with this one. So this one, well, it's a great film. It does have a nice release on another label. I'm going to talk about My 20th Century from Ildiko Enyedi, who's a Hungarian director. This is, because I've been trying to think, I'm going to do a top 10 second run releases. This is my favorite second run film that there is. It tells the story of two young girls. They are out one day, they get split up and stolen by two different men. And it's like almost like a parallel, two twin sisters. And they grew up in very different circumstances and very different surroundings. And the story tells then of them meeting up and kind of like happenstance meetings over the course of their lives, and kind of how their lives went totally different, even though they started in the same place. They were stolen from the one place. And it's just so beautifully shot. It is like, the film's from 1989, but it has like one of those timeless looks where it could have been, you look at it and go, oh, this could be a 1950s film. This could be a 1970s film. It could be kind of from any time whatsoever. It's shot in black and white, shot really beautifully, and tells this really lovely story of these two twin sisters and how, you know, certain small changes in your life or small things can just totally change the outcome and facet and face of your life, about how you treat other people, how you get motivated to do certain things in life, you know, whether politically or otherwise. And it's just an utterly fabulous film.
What's the name of the director again? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Ildiko Enyedi. So
Okay.
I think she has a film out in Mubi. I can't remember which one is it. Beginning or Body and Soul, maybe it's one of the two of them. That people might have seen as well. But yeah, brilliant. Really
Underrated label. Underrated label.
Yeah,
second run.
sure.
They put out so many underseen, like truly underseen gems of things. So don't get enough recognition, that label.
I was going to say I've got it on my shelf, so I'm probably going to prioritize watching it now. Having heard that.
It's a brilliant film. And as has been said about second run by a couple of people, it's very much the tastes of one man.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like let's look at all of these kind of films that I like and go, right, I'll just release them then. A bit like Third Window, kind of do the same thing. It's not a one person operation, and kind of get these there's real love goes into both of those labels, I think, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it could see a Criterion release because there's already been quite a few second run films that have made it across.
Yeah, got Daisies, The Cremator.
The Karel Zaman movies.
The Three Fantastic Tales. I actually was going to pick Farmer's Ball, but this has a DVD. This is actually out in the collection via DVD, I believe. Yeah.
I love that film so much.
Milos Forman. It's such a great film.
And one for Sam because it's 70 minutes long. So
Yes. Come on. Yes, more recommendations of those, please.
Sometimes satires can be kind of whimsically funny. I think that's genuinely hilarious. Like a lot of it, yeah.
It's so funny. And it's really cringe as well. Like a lot of yeah. So good.
Great pick. Elliot, you're up.
So maybe this is cheating because I'm kind of picking a filmmaker rather than one film, but
that is cheating, but go ahead.
So well, surprisingly, this is a filmmaker that isn't in the collection at all. So, and I've seen recently that there's a bit of a kind of desire for this director to join the collection. I'm talking about Peter Greenaway. I don't know if there's anyone familiar.
Nice. Yeah.
So I bought a selection of his films here to talk about, but the main one is this, and I always get this title the wrong way around. It's The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
Sure.
Which this is the Australian Blu-ray, but at the moment every Blu-ray of this doesn't look good at all. It's from a really old master, and it just hasn't been. I don't think it's been restored at all since early DVD days. So this really is in need of like some restoration work, and a 4K disc would be great.
Yeah.
Greenaway is a very subversive filmmaker. He has a lot of very interesting views on filmmaking and certain other filmmakers. This one is it's like a brilliant satire. It's very surreal. It's about this restaurant, and the restaurant it's on this film set, and it's all very artificial. You can tell it's not a real location. And we follow this restaurant owner played by Michael Gambon, and he's such a despicable guy. He's like very brutish, childlike. You instantly hate him, from the first time he opens his mouth. And his wife is played by Helen Mirren, and she starts to have an affair with one of the patrons of the restaurant. So it's all about like the relationships, and just the characters are just absurd. So I'm still not really sure what the film is trying to say. I think it's kind of maybe looking at modern society and consumerism and things like that. But yeah, a great film, and I just really hope that one day this gets a restoration, because it doesn't look great on this disc.
Yeah, me too. They've another boutique label. Let's talk about another boutique label on the Criterion Roundtable, but it is what it is. But Severin put out Drowned by Numbers recently on 4K, which is
right now.
Yeah, I'm going to be picking that up when they do their halfway to Black Friday sale. I think that they've built a relationship with Peter Greenaway. So I wouldn't be surprised if he allows access. I don't know who holds the rights, but I think he gave them the access for Drowned by Numbers. So maybe he holds the rights to his own film. I don't know, or he can facilitate some sort of dialogue with whoever does own the rights. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone does put this out in a better restoration at some point in the future. But yeah, it does. Criterion would be fantastic. More people need to see Peter Greenaway's work. I love it. I just love his character. Like, I've watched so many YouTube videos of him being interviewed and stuff. He's such a fascinating individual who basically thinks that cinema is dead and has been since like the 30s. He makes films still, but he's always pointing out the artifact of film, and like showing you this is a film, and always pointing at the audience saying, you are watching a film, know that you're watching a film. It's very interesting. He's a very interesting character.
Yeah, because I think he said that 99.9% of films today are just filmed novels. They're not actually embracing what cinema can be. But then I think he's also guilty of that himself, so I'm not really sure what he's getting at there.
Yeah, true.
But some of his films are really hard to see as well. Like there's one called Prospero's Books, which I don't think has a Blu-ray. I think it has a Blu-ray in Japan, but nowhere else in the world.
You're not trying hard enough there, Elliot. You should have that.
I know. And then even the BFI have released
Draftsman's Contract.
They did Draftsman's Contract, which I've got the old German Blu-ray, so I need to get the BFI. But like these two, A Z in Two Noughts and Belly of an Architect, these are both amazing films. But these Blu-rays now are like 13 years old, and they're from older HD masters. So they could kind of improve on the quality of these two.
And I do think the more recent BFI output, they've embraced the fact that they are archiving, some of these films that no other label is really going to do, for an awful lot. So I think the Draftsman's Contract, it's a 2-discer. I believe that the recent release, I watched it recently. A sort of beautiful, confusing, thought-provoking film. That's very much, well, that struck me.
It's interesting to see that, because I know that Umbrella one's from 2021, which is not that long ago. So I kind of wonder, and then like you said, there's a release in Japan and in the UK, and I wonder if they're like all over the place, just like in just different people's hands. I don't know how much control Peter has of his films, but I'd be interested on
it. Probably is a case that these things need restoration. So there's no one company going to fork out and do all of the restoration for all the films. They'll probably cherry pick, which is why BFI say, I'll do that one.
Right.
We had another while to do another one. Exactly right. Yeah. And spread the cost around. Or Noah's Pillow Book is out on Indicator as well.
Yeah,
I have Pillow Book.
Yeah.
Great pick. I picks plural. I second that motion. Peter Greenaway does need to come to the Criterion Collection. I think a lot of people who aren't aware of his films or haven't seen anything are going to find him really interesting, if nothing else. So,
and I think he's got a new film which is coming out soon. I think he's been working on it for a while. I know for ages he wanted to do an adaptation of Death in Venice, the Thomas Mann novel that Visconti did an adaptation of, but he went on record and he called both Thomas Mann and Visconti paedophiles because of how the novel and the film is sort of done. So he's a controversial guy, you know.
I think that's sort of fair, though.
Yeah.
Not real films. Not real.
So I'll wrap this up then. So
Finish.
But we'll see. I'm pretty sure none of you have seen this film. But yeah, so film that I would like to see come to the Criterion Collection is a filmmaker who is already in the collection. They have a couple of films in the collection, but this is a film that is sorely needing a restoration and a Blu-ray. This doesn't even have a Blu-ray as far as I'm aware. I didn't dig too deep, but I don't think this has a Blu-ray. And I'm talking about Claire Denis' Trouble Every Day. So this is her follow-up to Beau Travail. So this came out in 2001, and it's possibly her most controversial film, and it's also her most confusing and perplexing film, at least in my experience in Claire Denis' work. And it's quite famous because it's famous because it's connected to the new French extremity movement. So, you know, a lot of the films that came from France in the early 2000s that had a lot of graphic and visceral content in them. A lot of them were like horror related or just really dark dramas with a lot of like uncomfortable things in them. But this is, I mean, if you've seen any of Claire Denis' work, you may think that is a little surprising for her to have maybe made a film with that sort of content in it. I will preface this by saying that there's only a couple of scenes in this film that are like quite troubling. Nothing, so there is a lot of films out there a lot worse, but they definitely have an impact. But this is very much a metaphorical story about a newly-wed couple that take their honeymoon in Paris, and the husband, who's played by Vincent Gallo or Gallo, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He was in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah,
he was in Buffalo 66, which is a good film. Anyway, and he basically used to work in a sort of secret research facility that was like investigating the human libido. And while so it's all like a front, like he has married this woman and he loves her, but he chooses to go to Paris so that he can sort of like sneakily visit this research center and also potentially seek out a woman who he was previously involved with, played by Beatrice Dahl in a terrifying role. She is utterly, I mean, you see the front cover here. She's like just drenched in blood. So she's she's very scary in the film, and she is like kept by a doctor. When I say kept, I mean she's looked after and sort of hidden away so that she has like homicidal tendencies that involve her killing people and things like that, and she's like being kept secret from people, and the two storylines merge basically of this couple coming to Paris and him investigating wanting to go back to this research facility. The plot in the film is quite light and the character development is quite shallow, but I don't say that I couldn't think of any other ways to describe it, but that sounds negative. But the film is not, as I said earlier, the film is like a very metaphorical thing, so it's very much like presenting an idea to you more than telling you a story as such, which maybe some viewers who do source this out may find challenging. But I think the Criterion like to push people's comfort zones sometimes, and maybe show them something that they haven't seen before, and particularly Claire Denis' visual style of telling films. She also worked on this film with Agnes Godard, who photographed Beau Travail. So it's gorgeous to look at, even though this DVD is like super old and the transfer is not fantastic on it by today's standards. You can still see how like good the photography was on it and stuff. And yeah, as I said, it's a metaphorical sort of like statement about how humans are like constantly in search of like connection and intimacy, and how like maybe throughout history, like sex and violence have always been sort of interconnected with one another. And yeah, I don't want to spoil certain elements of this because there's a lot of interpretation about exactly what this is like trying to say, and whether it has some sort of mythology to it potentially. But I love it. I think it's fantastic. It is shocking in places, but it's definitely one of the more palatable films from the films associated with the New French Extremity. It has a fantastic score by a band called Tindersticks. I don't know if anyone's aware of that band. They're a UK band, sort of like alternative rock band that have done a load of scores, particularly with Claire Denis. They scored White Material and The High Life, the science fiction one with Robert Pattinson in. And yeah, this has got like no special features on it to say, apart from like a star and director filmography, which is basically like a list of the things that the people have been in, which is not a special feature. Sorry, Tartan DVD. They're defunct now. These are long been thing, but yeah, I remember used to getting a lot of Japanese films on this like the Tartan Asian line and stuff. It's where I first saw Battle Royale, which is the first DVD I ever bought, was from Tartan. So yeah, so anything like an interview with Denis. She's worked with the Criterion, as I said before, and done interviews, maybe a video essay I would like to see on the New French Extremity and how this film fits into that mold and where it breaks that mold. And maybe I don't want to say that the New French Extremity is something I don't like, because I do love a lot of the films in it, but this is something different to that. I just think it's lumped into it because it came out at the time of the New French Extremity. It's a French film that has a few extreme moments in it, but I don't think it fits in with that. But I'd love someone to explore the themes and why a lot of people can like consider it something with that movement. And yeah, it needs an upgrade visually, audio wise, and some cracking special features, please. And as they work with Claire Denis previously, something I could see them doing down the line. It will be a very polarizing film, I think, but I love those sorts of things because it gives you lots of discussion points. I mean, everyone loves to love everything. Like a certain film is very popular, but when you get a film there where some people love it or some people really hate it, and then you get people coming together and politely discussing why they think that way, I think it's fascinating. So that's my pick.
Excellent. And probably out of all four, probably is better chance for that than maybe a lot of the rest of them, which is good to see.
Awesome. I've come up with something to finish off the episode. So we've had in the previous 3 episodes a quiz, but I run out of questions. I couldn't think of any more that weren't like ridiculously hard. Yeah. So I don't know how this is going to work, whether you're going to be able to see this on the screen, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an image or a part of an image from a Criterion cover, and you're going to tell me what the film is, basically. Okay, maybe because there's 5 here, there's going to be 5 to choose, so maybe I'll show them all and you'll either write them down or remember what they are, basically, and then we can go through them at the end and we can say what they are, because otherwise it will just be the first to call it out, and some of them are easier than others. So let's see if I can get this to work, because I have not tested this before.
So we're not shouting them out?
No, not for the first go round. So we'll just say, and then we'll say how many each got. I don't know how to. I literally made this like 10 minutes before we went live. So let me just get this on the screen. Just bear with me one moment while I try and figure this out.
And I can reach it.
I was going to say, there's no more room for anything else in that closet for pen and paper and anything like that. No?
Not at all.
Right. Can we see this?
Okay. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going for like, I don't know if you've seen it. There's an artist who, forgive me, I can't remember their name, but what they've done is they've famously taken like this sort of picture of eyes from various different characters from movies. I don't know if you've seen these. They're quite popular, various different horror films and all sorts of classic films where just the eyes have been, painted or whatever by this artist. So I thought I'd just take the eyes from various Criterion things and we'll see how we go. So this is film number 1. So all the people at home playing, see if you know what they are as well. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Hopefully this works. Okay. We good? Okay, move on to the next one. These are maybe too easy. I should have gone for really hard ones, but I thought I would just play a little bit of fun. Maybe we'll go for extra points if you can guess, if you can get the year of the film correctly and things like that. Oh, so
I got one of them.
Yeah. Next one.
Yeah,
these are too easy. I can see everyone getting these straight away. And then last but not least. Oh, Chris has to think about this one.
Yeah, that one's not obvious, I think.
No.
That one has me, I think.
Oh, cool. Okay, so we'll go back to the beginning. So everyone knows what this one is, right?
Yeah.
Hausu.
Yes. Yeah. But no Bahiku. Yep. So I'll post production. I'll put the full artwork on the screen now for the viewers at home. Next up. Everyone know this one?
Man Who Knew Too Much.
Yep.
Yeah.
The first one.
Nice one. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Next up.
Eyes Without Face.
Yeah. Fantastic film.
Nobody went for the French title of that. Okay.
What's it?
Les
Yeux sans visage.
Yeah. We'll get to French in a second. Just wait.
Yeah, I should have really. If I had more time to prep, I would have said, "Oh, what's the extra point if you can give me the French title of this film?" Next,
Belle de Jour.
Belle de Jour. Well done.
There's the French.
Yeah.
And then the last one, which I think Elliot and Nathan know, but maybe not Chris.
Maybe.
Yeah, is it The Brood?
It is The Brood by David Cronenberg.
I put Wooden Clogs, which I know is not the cover, but it's the same kind of art style.
Well then Elliot wins because he got one right. I think you've won everything. You're 4 for 4, I think.
Well.
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage, we're letting them win. It's just
You actually knew what that was, didn't you, Chris? You just didn't want to win.
Man.
So
I've nearly picked up that Criterion so many times. And until it's on my shelf, it's not there. And I love The Brood. Yeah. I think The Brood's a great film.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's one that it'll probably get a 4K.
Yeah, probably someone will put it up. Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't surprise me if Second Sight put that out because they have the rights to the Blu-ray to that. And they might in the UK, so they might get that out in 4K eventually one day. Anyway, a little bit of fun, little something visual for the viewers at home to look at. Next time. I'm not going to go for this same thing because now everyone's going to scour their shelves for all the eyes on their Criterion releases. But I'll try and think up something new every time to try and just a little interesting thing to finish off the episode. Yeah. So that was that. Anyone have any final remarks before we sign off today, guys? Any Criterion releases that you're interested or super excited to be getting in the future? There's been some fantastic announcements as of late. So,
I mean, do we want to mention the ones that have just been announced?
Yeah, go for it.
Some of those are very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, After Hours is the big one
that's the big one
because that didn't even have a Blu-ray.
That's right.
Anywhere, it had a Spanish bootleg, but there was no proper Blu-ray. So to get it on 4K
it's a big one. It's going to be a big seller.
It's one of those that I've not seen because I've just been holding out for the longest
Me too.
Time. I think there's only about 3 Scorsese movies I've not seen, and that's one of them.
Nice. Same for me as well. Yep, indeed. Interestingly, these renowned westerns, it feels like we'll be talking a lot. Nathan has them in hand.
I don't have the old one. I don't have the box set like everyone else.
It's a very the artwork on that set is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. I'm not sure these are really Criterion worthy. I'm just going to put that out, especially as 4K.
Ooh.
These are
They're
fun
B-movies.
films.
They're,
Yeah.
they're
As a collection, they're going to make a really nice collection, but I just, I don't know. These are not something I was looking at myself going, God, they should, they should definitely be available in the Criterion Collection or something like that.
Although I love the artwork, I love the, I mean, the individual discs. Like I love the different colors, and but like I kind of echo that, Chris, because I'm like, this is a little suspect, but at the same time, like I'm not mad that it's coming out.
The other thing to say about it as well, I think some of the films are tested by the Blu-ray format as well. I don't think they're the best looking films, and 3 of these films have got 4K releases. I'm really interested to see how that shows up, because they sort of look a bit, what's the like stage managed, the kind of for westerns where a lot of them were shot, very much on location and that kind of stuff. These really weren't, so we're more kind of in-house productions.
Yeah, I always thought Randolph Scott was quite a peculiar guy to be like a Western hero, because he's very different to John Wayne in my eyes.
I prefer him myself.
And I know that Randolph Scott, for a long time, he lived with Cary Grant, and it was rumored that they were in a relationship together.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed.
Which is quite interesting.
Interestingly, has everybody seen Triangle of Sadness, which is due out very shortly?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Well, it's on Amazon Prime, so if anybody's got Amazon Prime, it's streaming for free on there. That's where I watched it. It's a really interesting film. That's one that's worth discussing when it comes out, and seeing it's kind of a bit long, but it has like different stages throughout the film, so it kind of says about that why it's maybe that long. But
is it coming out to the UK? Like,
it's not coming out in the UK. It's got an ordinary Blu-ray studio release, I think, here. But
gotcha. I know it's coming to the Criterion, at least here. So
yeah, because it's 4K as well, isn't it? On Criterion.
And then Petite Maman is coming out as well, which I dearly love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm mad that I had the other version, but I'll take both.
I don't think there's much difference, is there? I don't think there's
just
like
the addition
any...
of My Life is a Zucchini.
Which is
okay.
Which over here was called My Life as a Courgette.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just so funny.
Definitely more French.
Yeah. I remember when that film was coming out on Blu-ray and DVD, I was working at FOP at the time, and we had a load of tote bags with My Life as a Courgette on, just to give for free to people that bought the film. So I've got a tote bag with My Life as a Courgette on it.
Nice.
Which I kept.
Awesome. Well,
that's a very niche thing to be bringing out too. How many people are stopping you in the street and going, "That's a silly gem."
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's what we're gonna do when we get our Radiance bags. People are gonna stop us on the street.
I've got my Radiance bag. I've got the gold one.
Oh,
this is cool.
My
wife was using it for shopping. I was like, "What are you doing with that? Put that back." That is.
Well, I've got the years ago when I was working at FOP as well. 88 Films did some tote bags, and there's one that just says 88 Films Slasher Collection. Oh. And I often do my shopping with that bag.
Nice.
I just think it's quite funny.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, this has been fun as always, guys. Always a pleasure. I know these aren't super frequent, but we all have busy lives and stuff, and I know I do. But we'll definitely get another one scheduled in, because I know these are quite popular on the channel. Nice to bring all the guys together and just have a chat. It's very casual and just chilled, and it's really cool. Get some recommendations and chat Criterion. So I think we'll sign off there, and until next time, everyone, take care.
Yep.